What's up,
Hey.
everybody? Hey, I'm DJ.
Hey.
That's Alex.
That's true.
You know what it is.
It's it's Alex and DJ watch a doc. I mean, come on, who doesn't already know that? Well, yeah, this is. How do you feel about your age?
About my age. Is this related to the doc
Yeah,
we watched
yeah.
this week? Oh, I guess we should let them know at least. Like, I like that we're keeping it casual, but let's let them maybe. What I can't even. Some Kind of Heaven. That's what it was called.
Yeah, Some Kind of Heaven, a documentary by a fellow named Oppenheimer.
Yeah, that was a direct and produced by Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, that's right.
And it had an Aronofsky feel to it. It felt like dark at points.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought it was going to be light. A friend of mine said that he read something about it being life affirming, and he was like, "Why don't you check it out?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we could do something that's like a little bit more positive or something." And then you watch it, it's like, "Oh, okay, it's a story about three sets of people that are either lonely or in bad relationships
In the winter of their lives.
What the hell?
Yeah, in the villages in Florida, which, you know, I guess for some people that is some kind of heaven, but I don't know if it would be my heaven.
Yeah, that was the villages. I looked that up a little bit. It's a because I mentioned, right, that they started in the 80s and now it's like 130,000. Yeah, and it's a white place. It's like 98% white.
Oof. Yeah, I would have guessed. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm trying to keep it positive in all aspects of life, not just on this show. So those people are living their lives. I'm sure there's many good people there. Even the people within this film, I empathize with a lot of them. But I mean, there's a vibe to that. Like, even the one tour guide on the boat was just like casually like making fun of Indians. And
well, if you're gonna do it casually. You know what I mean? If it's formal, I've always felt that formal racism is much worse than casual racism.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it light when you're offending major groups
Usually,
of
if it's formal, it involves suits and goose stepping. And anyway, we don't have to go down a road we already know.
Yeah. So, 130,000 people live in the villages in Florida. This movie shone a spotlight on three groups of people or individuals. And what was it? There was a couple?
Yeah, a couple and two individuals.
Yeah, it was a couple. Ann and what was his name? The wacky dude?
Dennis, I think? No, that was Dennis.
Reggie.
Reggie, that's it. Dennis is the other guy.
Dennis was the guy who was just trying to find a sugar mama.
Yeah.
And then the woman was the one recently widowed. Barbara, I think her name was.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, and then the couple, and they were all very different. I mean, they were all white. Other than that, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And it. By the way, I want to let you know, in the interest of keeping it casual, I ate a couple edibles right before we started, so I'm I'm pretty unmoved by the movie at this point in time, but maybe by the end I might have some tears flowing.
Oh, okay. All right. So because I find that you usually either smoke a joint before watching the movie, or sometimes before talking about it, or edibles before talking about it. But it was before talking about it now we've got the edibles. Is that right?
Yeah, but I also ate an edible before watching the movie, so I will be revisiting my state of mind while I was watching the movie. I will go back to last night.
So I think that what that does is that sets up a new dynamic that I'm aware of, at least. That we both watch a doc, and I watch it sober, and you watch it not sober, and then we compare notes.
I'm not always stoned, but this one I was like, oh, it's going to be life affirming? Because you told me that too. You said your friend.
No.
Yeah, but you know, it was okay. So let's just say what it was. It was kind of like nothing happened.
Yeah, it was just a slice of life kind of scenario. Yeah, I mean, but there was a bit of an arc. I mean, it's funny that you took a couple edibles while you're watching a guy, like, you know, hitting himself saying I'm made of iron because he's been doing so many hallucinogens, and he was like, Reggie was all over the map. He was like, he was doing Tai Chi, and he's said that he died, and he was like, he sounded like such a headache. Reincarnated. Seemed like such a headache.
His wife was a saint.
Yeah, right.
I loved at the end when he was like, I know you've put up with a lot over the last couple years from me and other people. And she was like, just you, no other people.
And then he says, but it was worth going through that to get where we are now. Nope, wasn't worth it. Because from his point of view, he was just having the fun time. He didn't have to deal with them. But it really lets you know, like, when you're retired, you kind of can do all these things that you stopped yourself from doing. You can do anything. And Reggie just went full out. I mean, apparently he was always a little weird, but that's the thing is, like, weird people in straight-laced lives, they get extra weird once you take away any of the boundaries. Yeah,
the structure is gone. It's just like, well, she said he was quote unquote normal when they first got together. So I think, they probably got married at 25 or something, let's say. And then, a lot happened from that time. You go through life. I mean, I think I'll be a weird old man. I kind of hope I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see it for me.
So how do you feel about getting older? Like, you started the episode off with this question, and I haven't really answered it yet. How do you feel?
There was a line that I thought actually I resonated with, which was that I don't really think about dying. I just think about having less time.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's kind of it. You really feel like there's a countdown. But it's the weirdest countdown. It's a fluid countdown because you don't know what you're counting down to. Am I counting down to 75? Am I counting down to 60? Am I counting down to 93? Is it going to be 120? Like, what are you counting? So this idea of counting down also it starts to give you limits, but you're like, well, wait a moment. If you choose to think like, oh, I'm near the end of my life and therefore I can't do certain things or I don't really have a trajectory, but it's like, okay, let's say you're truly midlife, right? Like, let's say you're like 40 and you're gonna live to 80, and at 40 you feel like, I don't have that much longer. It's like, well, no, actually you have as long as you've been here to do as much as that, as long as you keep yourself limber. That's the only thing, right?
Yeah,
and these
like
people
those people
doing
the limbo at the Jimmy Buffett at the Parrot Head.
Oh man,
concert,
I would not want to live in the villages. There's a couple things I don't like being around the same people, like around people who are just like me only, and also a same age, and like just this idea of like you have to go, I'm going to go there because I'll be around people who are like me, who are the same age as me. I can relate to them. It sounds dreadful, and also, what are they doing to keep themselves busy? Nothing I'm interested in doing. These sing-alongs, and I'm like, I don't want to be doing sing-alongs.
I agree, but it's funny because like Anne, I think her name was Anne, the half of the couple, she loved sports. I love sports. She was playing like pickleball. I love pickleball. He was playing golf at the end. I love golf. And then he was the one guy that Barbara was trying to snatch up, Lynn, the Parrot Head, Mr. Margarita Man. He was going to these Jimmy Buffett things all the time. I love Jimmy Buffett. I mean, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. This isn't an act. This is who I am. So I was like, on one hand, no, I don't want to live there. But on the other hand, I was like, I'd keep busy.
Yeah, you would keep busy, wouldn't you? Dear Lord. I just feel like you would keep. See, that's the thing is, you are a little bit more their people than I think I am. That's the thing is, I think a little bit of too much of a weirdo to hang out with regular folks. But also, I think it's just bad for you. I saw a couple articles where they talked about this idea of you don't want to be around people who are just like you. I mean, it's the bubble. The Villages is a complete bubble, and they know it.
Yeah.
They say it's a great place to be single, but when you mention this Margaritaville guy, the Margarita Man at the Parrot Head Club and all that crap. He was a golf cart salesman. He was like doing well for himself. He was like, that's a great place to be single if you're that guy. But if you're not really that guy, or if you get bored with that all the time, then it just ends up being. Then you end up like, what's her name that you said? What was her name again?
Anne.
Anne, I don't know.
So
she had to, she was.
Oh no, sorry, Barbara, the widow.
Barbara. Yeah. So she kind of started to get a little into him, and then she goes to one of his Parrot Head events, and then she sees him dancing around with like a kind of a in shape lady, with her hair done up nice, and then she's like, never mind. It's like here's a flirty guy. It really felt like what it does to one of the reasons I couldn't do it is it felt like you're turning your retirement back into junior high. That's what I didn't like about it.
They made the college analogy. They said you can be whoever you want to be when you come here. But the thing is, if you're a guy like Lynn, like I don't want to cast aspersions on this man. We only caught a glimpse of him, but I imagine that he was boning a lot of ladies, being Mr. Margarita Man, But but that's the worst kind of thing because you are seeing the same people all the time, and nobody's graduating, unless they die. That's graduating in the villages.
Yeah, that's right, isn't it? And you are, like you said, he's boning people all the time, and it's quite known that the STDs, I should say, run rampant through old folks' homes, and I'm sure that place is just a hotbed of venereal diseases, a term that they don't use as much as they did when I was younger. VD, baby.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be crazy to get to that age and just think you're over. Like, I feel like I'm over the STD era of my life. Like, I've never had one. I got to find some wood to knock on. But in my mind, I feel like I won't ever have one now. But that's got to be crazy to be like 80 and they're like, you have gonorrhea. You're like, gonorrhea?
Yeah, I'm back, baby.
Here's a question for you. You mentioned how like you have like less time left. I don't think about dying was the quote, but I know that I have less. It's not an indeterminate amount of time anymore. If you could find out when you were going to die, would you want that information?
That's you know what? I almost would.
Yeah?
I work well when I have a deadline. Literally dead line.
Dead line. I like it.
Thank you very much.
Would you actually, I don't know if I'd want, I also work well when I have a dead line, but I was going to say it normal there, but I had to go back. But I don't know if that deadline would make me work well.
Yeah, you know what? I think it requires some thought. I think I have to really live through it in my mind, like feel what a day would feel like. What would it depress me or would it motivate me? That's the question. Mm-hmm. Would it feel like I have more point or does it feel pointless? Does the unpredictability add something or take away? I don't know. I think if I think about it, you'll have to watch me think for a few minutes. I don't know if that makes for good podcasting.
No, I don't believe it does. But what we're going to do right now, Alex, is we're getting into one of two. We have a new segment we're trying this week, and I'm pumped for it. Yeah. So I'm gonna do it first, and you can do yours later in the episode. But this is the Tandem Rangent.
You love selling things, don't you?
I do, yeah. So the first Tandem Rangent that I'd like to ask you about is that dude who was like living in his van, just trying to find a, sugar mama to settle down with and take advantage of. Do you
Dennis.
think sweet Dennis
didn't want to settle down at 81 anyway?
Yeah, the man who had the quote that I always knew I wanted to live fast, love hard, and die poor. I'm like, you made that up. Nobody ever says die poor. Like, did you add that later when you realized you were gonna die poor? But
this is all in the plan. It's all in the plan.
The Tandem Rangent I'd like to go on about our friend Dennis is, do you think he ever had sex in that van?
I would say that he for sure would have.
And you think another person wanted to with him?
Yeah, I think that a couple things at play. First of all, if he's feeling lonely, he'll find somebody else who is feeling lonely. And the other thing is maybe some people will think like, whatever. So I've never had sex in a van. That's a new one. I haven't done that yet. I've heard about it. I mean, I think if somebody's into you, they'll pretty much do anything anywhere.
I don't know who was into him. I mean, it was just a brief snapshot, but like that one woman said she could see right through him. And she knew he was looking for a woman with money.
Yeah, she could
see
it in his eyes.
And every woman he talked to, he would just talk about how many other bad women he'd been with and how many women had treated him wrong. Like, he seemed like he had toxic written all over him. I don't know how much game he had, but he was relatively good looking. I didn't think he was 81.
Yeah, I think he was like, you know, good kind of regular looking, not bad looking guy. You know, he's you know, he's clearly he's a type. He's the kind of guy who chooses freedom over his security, as he said that comfort's nice, but he sure, you could see his eye wandering too. You remember you'd see those like slow-mo shots. I like the way this thing was shot was pretty good too. It was nice images, nice cinematography, and and the music, the way it's cut together, it was good. It was a nicely. I could see why Aronofsky put his name behind it.
Yeah, well, every time they showed Dennis, like, it was like the music sounded like so ominous. I was like, is this dude gonna murder somebody in his van?
I know it was pretty ominous. You're right, and he was.
And the priest.
The priest that priest was a joke.
When he was talking to him and he was saying, "I made a decision at 40 because I didn't want to end up like you at 81." I was like, "Yikes, dude!"
Yeah, thanks for the counseling. You really brightened up my. I mean, what are you trying to bring me down so I accept Jesus into my heart? Is that what's happening?
Everybody who's in some sort of a position of authority made me cringe in this movie. Like, that priest, he was actually one of the better ones. There was another priest who seemed even worse. When Barbara, the widow, was watching her old wedding tape, and the priest married her and her husband, and then he said, "You may now kiss the bride," and they kissed. And then he came in for a kiss after, the priest, and kissed her, and he was like, I always get the second kiss. I was like, that's not standard procedure. The priest doesn't come in and kiss the bride.
Kiss from the priest. Yeah. Well, you know, it's a small village, right? It's like they're odd people who are insulated in that way. So I think you can sometimes get away with more. I don't know. Weirdos. It's not for me. Although, you know, younger people are moving into it. That could have been my random tangent. Tandem rangent. See, I knew I'd mess it up. That could be my tandem rangent, is the fact that young people are starting to move in there. I got two of them. Yeah, and also there was according to the census in 2020, that it's the largest growing metropolitan area in the States.
In Florida?
In the States.
In the States. Where in Florida is it?
I don't know, actually. I can't remember if I saw that. So there you go. Huh. There's a couple of. I think I got it wrong though. We're supposed to have things to jump off of by talking about the tandem.
Oh, was that truly your tandem engine?
I guess I don't know. I was thinking wrong. I was thinking like, oh, that's a good. It's not a tangent. It's like it's a fact. Anyway, I'll get it right. I'll figure something else out.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like the whole thing. I don't know. I can see, like, my dad would love living there. So sure. Like, and like I said, I didn't feel, I don't want to live there, but I didn't feel like I could never live there. Like, if I compare that to retirement home where there's, 50 people in the home or 100 people, and there's that sort of sadness that some retirement homes are better, a more positive feeling. But, I've been in some visiting relatives where you're like, I would want to die if I was in here. I didn't feel like that in the villages. It felt like people were trying to be happy, and then the movie, as it went on, kind of broke that facade and showed you that actually people are having issues even within this heaven. But it still seemed relatively positive.
I would say if you're comparing it to a retirement home, then yes, you're right. But one of the articles I started reading was about, I started reading, I like that. It's like I didn't finish it clearly. Was the fact that, and I was going to mention this earlier, that there are better alternatives than living in a bubble. That it's better, it benefits everyone, and obviously mostly the retirees, to not. It fights. First of all, it's better for just generally people getting together in the country, that you don't segregate yourself into a bubble. So, and also it's good for to combat ageism, because if everybody says, "Oh, I don't want to be around people other than my age," you're also going to cut people off, and now you're going to get a lot of these okay boomer reactions to you, and then also the diversity, like just the idea of having an intergenerational diverse community that you're a part of is way better for you and for society and your mental health than the villages where it's just where they apparently also did you hear about this? Trump retweeted a video that was shot in the Villages when it was like a pro-Trump rally, and a guy was going by in a golf cart yelling, "Yeah, white power, white power." So that's the Villages for you. These are not the Village people, mind you. All right? All right? You will not find people of all colors and indigenous people alongside cops and... Who else were there? A plumber? Construction guy? I don't know. Anyway.
Was there a fireman in the Village people?
I can't remember. I think, yeah. I mean, the people.
And why was it the Village people? It was all men. It should have just been the Village men.
That's a very good point. I think
and again, I don't want to make assumption, but if it's 98% white in Florida, yeah, I mean, that's Trump country.
Sure.
And you would not feel very welcome if you weren't necessarily on that side of the political aisle, I imagine.
Yeah, there was another article that I didn't get a chance to read about...
Didn't even start it.
Didn't even start it. The headline was enough. I was like, I get the gist. It was like a 71-year-old resident who was actually not pro-Trump, and some controversy regarding him, I guess, stirring up some crap over there. So, this is... It was an interesting peer inside, because it started off, I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of cute, sweet, older people being nice. And then I was like, this guy singing Pink Cadillac, his eyes look sad. I don't know if this is going to be as much fun to watch and life affirming. So, yes, it followed, it was the trajectory. This is why I say I felt like the story with the woman saying, I'm going to force myself to get out there. And then she ends up feeling like I said, it's like junior high. It's like, here's people just getting out there. And it's like the rich get richer. It's if you're good looking and you're social, then you'll just get, but if you're not, you're going to be just as lonely here as you would be at home outside of the community.
Maybe, but then she also started going to acting classes and that little meetup with all the other women, and that stuff was all available to her. So maybe if you want to play devil's advocate, maybe the takeaway was that she did have a lot available to her. Not necessarily in the dating pool, but to be social.
Yeah, I mean, everything seemed to was painted with a sad brush, because there was that moment when she was, I think, was she doing a sing-along or something like that?
With the, what instrument is that everybody was playing so wrong?
Yeah.
Tambourine.
Tambourine. Yeah, it was like,
yeah.
It just didn't look like she was that happy. It looked like, I just watched that scene in Sopranos of Junior Corrado singing at the mental institution or something like that, singing along, and he'd been beaten.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and it's funny because I looked up this guy, I think it's, what's his name, like Lance or something like that, Oppenheimer. He's a kid, by the way. He's like 25 now.
Really?
Yeah, he's I guess been shooting. He shot like a few short documentaries that ended up being put out by New York Times, and so I guess it was only like a year or so ago that he shot this. He shot this obviously before the pandemic. So he was like in his early 20s, a Harvard grad, right? Yeah, he had it all.
Really?
Yeah, he's got it all. And so,
wow.
But I checked out a couple of his other shorts, and it's very similar in tone. It seems to be, he likes telling stories about people who may be lonely, who aren't necessarily saying it. Like, there's one called The Happiest Guy in the World, Happiest Man in the World, or something like that. And he's a guy who rides cruise ships. And that's all he does. He just goes from one cruise to the next.
I've met people like that.
And he describes himself as the happiest guy in the world. And he says something, people do group things. I don't really like the group dynamic. I like being on my own. And so you see him on his own, and maybe he seems like it's independent and enjoying it. But then there's those moments. It's the same thing as in this film. There's moments where you see through the cracks. There's some cracks where they're showing you a little bit of the loneliness. And then he had another one about people who work for the aviation industry who live on like at LAX, like around the airport, like, same kind of where it's like in a mobile home or that kind of thing. A lot of mobile home residents. And again, talking about like, I like being alone. I like this. And I've been here, I've been there, but I like this. But then it looks like, oh, is he about to cry? This is his wheelhouse. And
I met older people when I performed on cruise ships who did exactly what you said about the happiest person on earth guy. Like they sold their home when they retired and would just cruise for years straight. Stay on one ship, the same itinerary for like 6 months, and hop on another one for another 6 months. And they did say they were happy, but man, that is a different life.
It's everybody has their own version. Like I like change. I like things being different. I'm related to people who love things to stay exactly the same every day. So for me to be stuck on a mall on the ocean sounds dreadful and dull. But you're right. He was talking to other people who were like, so what are you doing? We're moving to this cruise. Oh yeah, well, I'll see you there. I'll be there. So they know each other. There are these. I think there was another thing that I wanted to mention. Oh yes, here's a moment that I loved. That it was a good moment of comedy in the doc. He described himself, this guy, what is he? He's like in show business. Dennis, was it? Yeah. He's in show business, a DJ, and a handyman, right?
Yeah.
And he's trying to say, like, maybe he's trying to hook up with ladies, saying, if you need a handyman. He's like, nah, I don't need a handyman. Well, this handyman, watching him struggle with Venetian blinds.
For a long time.
I mean, it was going diagonal one way, the other way, flipping, flopping, and he was not figuring it out. And you figure you're on this earth for 81 years. You've been able to handle a few of those, right? And they can be tricky. Anyway, he's a handyman.
Yeah, I mean, and there was no resolution. It didn't show at the end him finally getting them. He just never figured them out. He was like, I guess I don't need sunlight. And then do you know what he reminded me of? Have you ever seen The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
It's made by Darren Aronofsky.
Sure.
And he just keeps fucking up that whole movie. Like, he tries to do well, and he just can't. And I feel like Dennis was, he wasn't a former wrestler, but it was the same kind of thing. Like, even when he was calling all people who were clearly from another era in his life and being like, I need $3,000, and just hearing them on the other end of the line being like, I can't do that. Yeah. You're like, damn, this dude has like burned bridges.
Yeah, that did feel like a wrestler scene, didn't it? The calling, the one call after another. It felt like a scene in one of those kinds of films. It did. It was that scene, particularly that one where you hear him calling one. That's a tough one too. Can you imagine the idea of agreeing to be in a documentary and then having a moment like that where you'd be a little ashamed maybe that they're capturing that on film? So I got an appointment. Could we start up again tomorrow morning? How about that? Like, I don't need you to watch me call people asking for money. All right.
But maybe that's part of the allure of filming older people too, because perhaps for a lot of them, shame has gone away, or
shame has left the building.
Maybe. I mean, the reverse can be true. I've met older people who needed hearing aids for the first time, and they were ashamed because they were like, I don't want people to know I can't hear well. And I'm like, You're 80 years old. Who cares? But so I don't think shame ever really goes away. But you got to imagine when this director is trying to find the subjects for his film, he's trying to pick people where he's like, I think some shit's going to go wrong for you in the next few months.
That's great. Hey, wait a second. Why are you picking me? What do you see? Or maybe, but also maybe Dennis is thinking, you know what? If I'm on if you tape me, if you record me, calling all these people looking for money, maybe they might not give it to me, but maybe somebody watching the movie might take some pity on me. They'll look me up. I'll get a bit of a windfall. Find a nice lady. You know what I mean?
Find a nice lady with money. Well, the woman that he ended up.
The old friend, I was going to say, the old friend, yeah.
And even she was like, because they were together by the end of the movie, but she was like, and then they alluded to, they didn't actually say it, but by the end it looked like he was moving on and leaving her. Like, nothing could last for him. He just couldn't.
Well, once it started, are you listening to me? When it was a bit of that, the domestication started to set in pretty quickly, and he felt confined. The old friend doing it for old time's sake gets real old real soon.
He was lucky she was there for him. And then when he called his mom, I was like, how old is your mom?
That's what I was wondering too, and also just fairly lucid sounding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
know.
It felt like me calling my mom, telling her, yeah, just doing the stand up, doing the. She's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Let me know when something else happens.
Yeah. Keep him busy, Mom. Handyman, comedy.
Yeah.
In that order. By the way, can you send me some new blind? I had a bit of an issue.
Yeah, he has some issues there, but we all have issues. I didn't mean to judge. I mean, just Yes. But the acting guy was intense. The who am I?
Hurrah!
Hurrah!
Yeah. That was another guy. I said everybody who's in like a position of power or anything made me like. He seemed fine. I mean, it was just one scene they showed, but I was like, "What's this guy's story?"
Yeah, that's
There's
exactly
a lot of intensity.
We do wonder what these stories are, and but we only got a couple. We only got 3. But
let's get into the final segment.
Let's
Alex.
do it. Yeah.
The final 3 questions that we end every episode with. The first question is, what'd you learn?
Yes. I in no way prepared for any of these this week. But I have a nice setup if you watch this on YouTube. It's pretty nice back there. Huh? Looks like... Anyway, what did I learn? I learned about the fact that you don't have to go to an old folks home. You can get a whole Disneyland community. The fact that this was built to be like Disneyland, kind of like like the fountain of youth. And I did learn that junior high never goes away. Mm-hmm. That it did feel very much like going to a dance, and the pretty people get to dance, and the other ones watch and feel lonely, just like they do in junior high. And you got to keep in shape, and you got to get your hair did.
It's true. Yeah. But yeah, maybe there's a club for people who don't get their hair done. There's 130,000 people there.
Do you know what that club is? Stand-up comedy. You can age and still hang out with people as a comic.
That's true.
That's
true. You know what I learned? Funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Even then, a bit of a gray area. But I learned that when it comes to getting older, the person I most empathize with is an older gentleman experimenting with drugs. I learned that, I felt like his drug use, yes, it was a codependency, and he said he wasn't doing coke, but again, don't want to insult anybody. If he said he wasn't doing coke, he wasn't doing coke, but it seemed like he wasn't just smoking weed. But I liked that he seemed to be raging against something. He wasn't just falling into senility or like, here's how an old person is supposed to behave. I liked the Tai Chi and the weird breathing and that
wasn't bad.
He was trying to connect to something.
It was good. Yeah, he was trying to explore, and he had a YouTube channel where he's showing his, what do they call it? Like, not metamorphosis, but something like that.
Yeah, so I think, like, I learned that I want to try to always keep my mind active and fresh as I get older. And as much as I do like comfort, and I like comfort more as I get older, I feel it even more now versus 5 years ago. I could have been on the road for 2 years straight 5 years ago without a home base and been like, yeah, I love it. Whereas now, like, I was just on the road for 2 weeks and I came home yesterday and it was amazing. I needed it.
It's funny how that changes, yeah.
Yeah, but I still want to keep trying to figure things out, not settle into malaise.
Yeah, I like to settle into mayonnaise. That's the best joke I could come up with at the end of all that. But
it worked for me.
I hear you though. Fight the dying of the light. That's what Reggie was doing.
That's right. Who is that? Is that Ralph Waldo Emerson? I just remember from Interstellar.
No, it's I can't remember now.
Michael Caine. That's right.
What the hell are you talking about? I think it's like one of these, like, I don't know. It's not T.S. Eliot. It's goddamn. I can't not. I feel like a fool for not being able to hear. So what's the next question? I'll look this up while we're going to the next question.
The next question is, how do you feel?
Dylan Thomas. Do not go gently into the...
Dylan Thomas. That's who Bob Dylan named himself after.
That's right. Yeah. That good night. What did I learn? Is that it? What did I learn? No, what did I feel?
Yeah.
What I feel? Is that the next one?
Do you know Bob Dylan's real name?
Yeah.
What is it?
Jaime Schleimendichen. No, it's Zimmerman is his last name. Zimmerman.
Robert Zimmerman. You got it. Yeah. Oh, another thing I wanted to say is you said you don't think your people would be down there. Wouldn't there be a lot of Jewish people down there in Florida? In a retirement village?
My people meaning like a little bit oddball outsiders. Just because I don't hang out with like Jewish community people. I don't. They're fine.
You would have been feeling like Reggie. Because Reggie didn't feel like his people were there either. Yeah, that's why he turned to drugs.
Exactly, and I would be. I'd be just like that. No, I'm not. I know you're the druggie in this relationship right now, but you know, I like to toot. So
how'd you feel?
I felt surprised that how sad I was. It turned out to be. We already talked about that, but I did. I was. But then again, I also felt like it was kind of interesting to put myself in that position and say, okay, how would I deal with this? Which is to say, not be there. I think that's how I would deal with it, is not to be in that. I look at all that. Actually, I felt kind of uncomfortable. Like a lot of all the activities you say you enjoy, and I just felt like, yeah, I'd have to find an alternative to this, which is good to know once I read that they're actually looking to create more communities where young people are helped by older people. Let's say young people in college. Like there's these. That's another one where they're older people in college communities where they can kind of help with the education, with the tutoring or whatnot. Yeah, that kind of thing. That's what I'd rather do. So yeah, I felt like an outsider once again. Anyway, go ahead. How'd you feel?
I felt. I didn't feel too much. I thought somebody was going to die at some point. So. It's a weird thing to think someone's going to die and then they don't. And you're like, I don't want to say I'm disappointed because I'm happy they're still alive. But I thought we were maybe going somewhere. But it was just a slice of life. It was just a couple months in these people's lives. So I still enjoyed it. And again, we've mentioned it before, but I probably wouldn't have watched that movie if not for this podcast that we do. Uh-huh. And I'm glad I watched it. Like, I've heard about the villages, but I didn't know it was 130,000 people. I didn't know that it was pretty much a city. I certainly didn't know it was the fastest growing metropolitan area in America. So I felt whenever I watch older people, I really start to think about my mortality.
Sure.
So I felt some questions within of what I want my later years to look like if I'm lucky enough to make it there. That's what I was feeling. Sadness.
Yeah.
Becoming older is like, it's so hard for it to not be tinged with sadness because I love life. You know, I don't want to get old and die. So that was ever present the whole time I watched.
Yeah, I find the thing with aging is that it doesn't bother me particularly. It's just what bothers me is how people react to me being older and love talking. They love talking about you being older and always like they're always the ones making those comments. You know, that's where it's like, it makes me like a self-hating, because I also sometimes feel like, oh, geez, they're old. I don't want to hang out with those old people. I'm like a self-hating ageist.
I mean, we both live in LA too. This town is not kind to old people.
No, not at all. But as long as you gotta make your own thing. You gotta create your own space. You know, create your own territory, if you will.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain the background on that, or are you just going to leave it at that?
Yeah, just leave it at that.
Awesome. Final question, Alex. Where do we go from here?
I go. I go hug an old person.
Yeah, I'm calling my mom right after we finish taping this.
Yeah. I have some things to do. Maybe in a couple days I'll give her a... I have a complicated relationship. We don't need to get into the details.
I gotcha.
So, yes, I do. But, again, it's to quote Tom, no, not Tom, like Tom Sawyer. What am I talking? The guy who wrote Tom Sawyer. To quote, Mark... Twain, right? Age is mind over matter, and if you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I thought that was Dr. Seuss that said
Wait
that.
A second, let me see if that's...
Dr. Seuss and Mark Twain I mean, they're pretty much interchangeable.
But maybe I got it from like an internet meme.
No. Oh, you might be right, because I was thinking the Dr. Seuss quote is, those who matter, be yourself, because those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Sounds like he was Dr. Plagiarist in that case, because that sounds pretty similar in my opinion.
You don't talk about Dr. Seuss like that, okay?
Yeah, right.
All the great Spoiro ideas.
I won't, just as soon as I see his credentials. Doctor of what precisely? So, just don't even think about it, And when somebody brings it up, that's a thing that I started doing. I started doing the opposite. How old are you? Me? I'm 85. You know what I mean? Give it to them.
I gotcha.
So what are they going to do?
I feel like where I go from here, I don't know. I feel like more than anything, this movie didn't give me a where do I go from here.
Isn't that ironic?
It's I don't know. I really like, even when I turned it off, I was like, what was my takeaway there? I don't know. I mean, I was happy that Reggie ended up relatively okay, and his wife, and that he seemed to be like, because when he went to court, I'm like, they're not sending an 80-year-old man to prison for weed, are they?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I don't know where I mean, I try to appreciate life, and I'm a bit of a morbid personality, which Madge will like get upset about, because like I'll say some morbid stuff, but I'm always thinking about death lurking around the corner. Like, I'm not, there were several mentions in this movie about how we're all gonna die and people choose to ignore it. This guy ain't ignoring it. I'm thinking about it all the time, but I don't think to my detriment. Like, I like to believe I'm pretty happy, but so I don't know if I'm going to change anything necessarily. I still think life is a gift, and I'll continue to treat it that way. Hurrah!
Dear Lord, is that how we're going to end this? I just wanted to say, by the way, that you brought up a good point about, like, what did you really get from this? And I think I wonder that about the director. Like, he keeps doing these, he keeps harping on this theme, and it makes me think, what are you trying to say? Like, what's your point? I mean, he's 25, but what's his point? Like, what is he keeps trying? Yeah, people might tell you that they're happy, but they're not. Like, is that what he keeps trying to say over and over again? Like, what is I mean, I guess it could just be a slice of life, but it really does feel like it's trying to hit the same theme. It seems to have that same listening to them and then showing a moment when they, where you see the cracks. But anyway, shall we move on? Let me ask you. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question before we go? Because you appear to have done a bit of research here that I did not. Do you know if they're all still alive?
No, I didn't look into that.
Okay.
I don't know what that would tell me. Yeah, a guy died. Okay, yeah, figures. That checks out. So next week, you want to watch something else?
No, I want to watch this again.
Maybe we'll watch it backwards. Huh? That's life.
People get happier as the movie goes on.
Yeah, they get slightly younger. I decided I caught a little bit of something on the television. I thought, let's do I think it's good to throw in a little TV doc, because they're like mini docs in a way, like a little, I saw on Nova, they had one about, called Edible Insects. And it looks really interesting, like just all the different takes on it, talking about like the mouthfeel and the taste and all that, and turning it into flowers and all that, like turning into a flower, like a cricket flower. So yeah, let's watch that, and we'll go back to talking about the diet, but that's like I guess you, being a vegan, you couldn't eat any of that stuff, right?
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I guess technically no, but I don't think there's like an over-harvesting of grasshoppers in the world. So there might be some ethical way I could do it if that's the takeaway from the movie. I'm open-minded.
Yeah, okay. I just thought maybe you cared about the suffering as well.
I do, yes. I'd need to look into that. Okay. But there's no way grasshoppers don't suffer. So yeah, no, I'm not watching the movie, Alex. You're going to have to pick something else.
Well, you and I will join. We'll talk next week, just you and listeners and watchers at home. We're going to be talking about the edible insects on the PBS website, Nova. Edible insects.
check it out. And this week we watched Some Kind of Heaven. And before we leave, Alex, I'd just like to say it is some kind of heaven for me to be able to hang out with you every week.
Oh my goodness, dear Lord! Sing praises and blow the horn, Gabriel. It is a wonderful, splendiferous day we have today. Thank you, DJ. I also enjoy, to a great extent, talking with you on these subjects, and to have you tune and listen at home, or on the bus or wherever you are with your podcast enjoyments.
Thanks for checking us out, everybody. I'm DJ.
I also am not DJ, but Alex.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.